our greatest power is a profound paradigm shift that I think we are finally ready to make. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. Hi, I'm Saratoga Ocean, and I work together with an interdimensional, interuniversal, and extraterrestrial force known as Telstar, along with Archangel Michael. Now, our greatest power as a humanity is also our greatest challenge. But I truly think we are ready for this. I'm going to show you how to completely shift your power of intention from a place of weakness to one of incredible strength. But before I do, I want to remind you that I will be releasing my new online course, Ascension Power, Trust the Light Within, which includes the final elimination of the source of fear, in just a few days. Now, you can still get on the wait list for this if you want to. And here's why that would be a good idea if you think this might be something that interests you. Everyone on my wait list will be given first access plus a limited time big discount that the public will not be getting. So you only have a couple of more days to get on that list. So I'll put the link in the description below this video. Okay, so let's talk about this immense power that we have and how we can begin using it right now. And this is going to help with our intention in the larger sense of our ascension energy and on the collective humanity of this planet, but it's also going to help you very much with your own personal intentions in your life. So I want to start by sharing something very interesting with you that Archangel Michael told me a long time ago. He said, if you've tried everything you can think of to change something and it's not working, it means that you need to change your perspective. It means that whatever perspective you're holding has a certain number of possibilities in it. So if you have tried all of the possibilities that you can think of and none of them have yielded the results that you want, then what you need to do is pause, because that means you need to switch to another perspective. Now, here's the mistake that we usually make. If we have tried everything we can think of and nothing has worked, then our tendency is just to give up and say, well, I guess it's just not possible. But the thing is, it's just not possible inside that one perspective. So thus, we need to switch to a new perspective, which opens up a whole new bouquet of possibilities. Now, a perspective is like a framework that governs your reality. So when you switch to a different framework, new possibilities open up. Let me give you a really simple example or an analogy of how this works. Let's say, for example, that your perspective is that you have to live in the city or the town that you're currently in for whatever reason. Maybe it's a city full of traffic and concrete buildings, but you want to go for a daily hike in nature because that would represent a solution for you, maybe for your health. So you look around your city and you see that there are no forests and there are no hiking trails. So this solution does not exist inside this framework. So in this case, the only way to experience the solution of a daily hike is to switch to a different framework of perhaps living in a smaller town in the mountains where that solution is available. Now, this is just a very tiny example of how shifting perspectives works on an individual micro level. As long as you stay in the framework of living in the congested concrete city, you will have to accept that no matter how hard you try, the solution that you're looking for just isn't possible. Now, let's look at how this functions on a macro, planetary, and cosmic scale. Now, we currently sit on a planet that is deeply troubled. This planet has been steeped in violence, in suffering, death, and war for thousands of years. And so far, these troubles show no sign of abating. In fact, it only seems to be getting worse with the current lockdown of our human civilization. So let's step back for a moment and ask ourselves what we really want. And why is it that so far there has been no apparent solution to all of these troubles? I mean, it's not like we haven't tried. As a civilization, we have tried everything, and so far it's not exactly working. And I'm talking about the things that we've tried for many thousands of years. I'm not just talking about current times. Now, I think a lot of people are at a point of real desperation right now. So this is a clear sign that we need to do something different. It's not that there is no solution. It's just that there's no solution given our current perspective. So we need a massive shift in our perspective. And this is actually our biggest challenge. See, right now, it's kind of like we're trying to keep our feet in two boats, like one foot in one boat over here and another foot in a boat over here. One boat is the boat of duality, which includes, of course, all of these troubles. And the other boat is what we really want in our hearts. So let me propose a simple vision of what I think we really want in our deepest hearts. This is a very big vision, and it would actually involve a complete change in the underlying physics of this planet. How about a world where there is no death and no suffering, no poverty and no starvation? The substance of the planet is so real, so full of light, that it actually makes Earth in its current form look more like a dark, heavy, kind of faded sphere by comparison. You know, like if you have that vision in your heart, the planet Earth is this gorgeous, gorgeous, radiant blue jewel, just amazing. But then, in the current state of duality, with all of the violence and the pain and the suffering and all of that stuff, it ends up looking very dim, very heavy, very dense, by comparison to that radiant, powerful vision I was just describing. Now, in addition to that, how about a feeling that we live in a totally benevolent universe? Not just on a single planet, but in the entire universe. How about absolute perfection in nature, where creatures don't eat each other and plants can live forever? You know, when I see the beings that I work with in Telstar, including Archangel Michael, they look so incredibly real that they actually make the entire surrounding room look dim and etheric by comparison. I'm actually not pulling this vision just out of thin air somewhere. I've actually seen what it looks like when beings live in that kind of a universe, in that kind of a reality. I mean, it's really interesting because, see, I have my interdimensional senses are open so that I can see them. They can be in the same room that I'm in. I think some of you already know this. I can have conversations with them, but it's amazing. They're so, I can't even describe it. They're so beautiful. They're such a perfection. They're just like radiant light, and they're not etheric light. I don't want to imply that they're etheric. There's a lot of substance there. And by comparison, this reality, this, I guess what some call 3D or what, it doesn't matter what you call it. It's the one we live in, right? By comparison, because I'm looking at the contrast between these beings and the room that we're sitting in, and the whole room just looks dim and etheric, like there's not a lot of energy there. It's the most amazing thing ever. So compared to these beings, we are actually quite etheric ourselves. Another interesting thing that Archangel Michael once said to me is that he said people think this world is very dense because they can't put their hand through the table. They can't, you know how it is. Everything's in separation from everything else. And if things clash together, they break and bad things happen. But he also said, that's not necessarily only about density. It's also about a principle in place that you can't see that is preventing you from having the freedom that you would have in a world where this duality doesn't exist. So the problem that we have as human beings is that we really cannot exist here in our full presence, manifesting physically in full presence. I mean, we are here in our full infinite presence, but I'm talking about manifesting physically in our full presence on this planet in its current finite state, because the conditions of the physics here are just far too limited. And this is why so many of us get so frustrated being here, especially if we're starseeds, especially if we have come from a different kind of reality where it's not quite this intensely small and limited. And that's why so many of us secretly do not understand how to function with this level of limitation. So if you feel that way, it doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It probably means there's something very right with you, actually. So here's the thing. We know in our hearts that we are capable of so much more. I mean, I think we all know that if we really tune into our inner wisdom, our inner being, and our higher intelligence. I think we all know that. We're creators. We know what we're capable of because we know what we can hold in our consciousness. Let me see if I can explain to you, I think, the mistake that we're making. Here's the mistake. We're in a dimension, in a reality on a planet right now that is really immersed in duality, really immersed in what we like to call the source of fear. And that's the phenomenon that created the underlying physics of this whole situation. You've probably heard me talk about this a lot so far if you've been following me on YouTube. So we're in this finite dimension as infinite beings, feeling sometimes confused, sometimes frustrated. Why can't we just be who we are? Why can't we just set an intention, have it manifest? I mean, look at your imagination. Your imagination's probably telling you a lot about who you really are. So understanding that, we could say that the limited state of this planet, with all of its division and violence and troubles, represents or holds within it a certain framework of possibilities. Now, as a collective humanity, we have never effectively changed our framework or our point of reference or our paradigm or whatever you want to call it. We've spent thousands of years inside this framework, inside this perspective, inside this paradigm, struggling and struggling to figure out, why aren't we evolving outside of this? Why aren't we evolving to a place where we can fully manifest as the creators that we are? So this is a very old, very ancient perspective or framework. Here's the problem with that whole thing. Do you want to know the only thing that's available to us inside of this framework? It's to simply try and move the various pieces around. That's really our only option. And boy, has that been tried for thousands of years. I mean, people have had wars, they've switched and traded leaders, we've changed countries around, people switch relationships around, people try to get more stuff in their life because if they get those pieces and want to move them in their life, that's going to solve a lot of problems. We can change the place that we live, we can earn more money, or we can earn less money, or we can change relationships. But it all boils down to the same solution of switching parts, played out in millions of different ways. And I guess you could even say the same thing applies to switching out lifetimes. Like, let's just change to a different lifetime. Maybe that'll work. So we think that if we can move all of these millions of parts around in just the right way, that eventually everything will work out. We just haven't found the right formula yet. The thing is, we can move these parts around all we want, but the overriding conditions haven't changed. We're still stuck in the same framework that doesn't allow us to truly evolve. So let's talk about what might be wrong with our framework and why it can't yield the results that we are looking for. Now, we are very stubbornly stuck inside a framework that says pain and suffering are good for us. Some say we deserve it. Others say it's necessary for our personal and spiritual growth. And we also tend to believe that death is important because reincarnation gives us a chance to start all over again and learn new things. We revere the shadow side of ourselves, and in many cases, we might even panic if that didn't exist. See, we've actually made a religion out of pain and suffering, and collectively speaking, we are quite dedicated to excusing it. So if we have a framework that says that pain, death, and suffering are good and necessary in order for us to evolve, then we cannot ever experience the vision that I described earlier. That's because this framework requires the existence of pain, suffering, and death. Therefore, you are trapped and will never get out as long as you insist upon maintaining that framework. Now, let me give you another example or an analogy, and I think this will make it really, really clear. Let's say that you are all tied up with a rope. It's very painful and it's very restrictive. What you really want to do is to just walk and move freely. But the problem is that you think the rope is valuable. You say things like, gee, if this rope wasn't here, I might not appreciate how great it is to walk. Gosh, even though this rope is painful, it's really helping me to get smarter trying to figure out ways to get out of it. Or how about this? My whole life has been about struggling with this rope. I've actually managed to break some pieces of it off, which was a real victory for me. I feel so much stronger now that I have less of this rope binding me. And finally, there's this. When you have spent lifetimes finding new ways to struggle with the rope, you can easily come to this conclusion. This rope is my friend. It's helped me learn so much. What would I do without it? I would be so bored. I'd have nothing to do. Life without the rope would be like nothing. And of course, every time you reincarnate, you start with a brand new piece of rope binding you completely. You have no memory of what you learned about the rope in your previous lifetime, so you're basically starting all over again. Now, in this analogy, the rope represents division, duality, pain, suffering, and death. And our collective religion about the rope is why we do not effectively evolve and why this planet continues to be stuck in various degrees of suffering for all of its life forms, not just human. Plants, animals, sea life, everything suffers and dies just like we do. So the power that I talked about at the beginning of this video is the power to shift our perspective in a very big way. We have to decide if we are done with the rope. We have to decide if we really want to evolve and if we are ready to give up our religion of pain and suffering. We need to recognize that the idea of just moving parts around isn't working. The religion about the rope, the perspective that we are stuck in, is what is making us vulnerable and aligning our energy with the monsters who are currently controlling this planet. So the framework that our collective human consciousness lives from has a big, fat, open door to the acceptance of misery, pain, and suffering. And as long as we stay stuck inside this framework, stuck inside this perspective, we are not living in alignment with the higher forces of evolution in this universe. Because see, the goal of these higher forces is to evolve this universe out of all of this stuff, to evolve it out of these limitations which should have never been instilled here in the first place. Now, when you shift perspective, when you shift paradigms of belief, entirely new possibilities open up for you. The level at which we need to shift our collective human perspective is massive, and it's going to require letting go of a lot of ideas and beliefs that do not work. You want to know when we're finally going to let go completely? When we get sick and tired and fed up enough with all of the nonsense that we endure on this planet. When we get so fed up that we finally admit, everything that I thought was real, that I truly believed in, has yielded nothing. And we finally say to the universe, show me something new. And I'm going to propose something to you all. The universe has actually been showing us something new, and it's actually not new at all. It's actually there's a foreverness to the vision that the universe persistently tries to show us. Now, where does it show us this vision? Where is this something new? That isn't even new at all, because it's actually our origin in our hearts. See, it's always, always, always comes back to the heart. So our greatest power, the biggest step that we can take at a cosmic level, is to shift to a completely different paradigm that aligns with our hearts. And we can reject our collective religion that pain and suffering are good for us and help us. And as I was saying, it all depends on how fed up you are with a reality that includes violence, pain, and suffering and validates its existence. See, we live in an infinite universe. There's an infinite amount of space, an infinite amount of time. If you want to look at it from a time-oriented perspective, we can take as long as we want to continue saturating ourselves in this crazy religion of pain and suffering, and nothing's going to stop us. We can do this for forever almost. And here's the other thing I want to suggest. It's not like you can make this kind of a paradigm shift and then say, okay, so that's how I feel. I want to make that shift, but who do I appeal to with that shift? How is that shift supposed to change anything? Well, one thing you certainly cannot do is appeal to the controllers with that shift, because that's going to go completely over their heads. You will naturally be appealing to the universe that you are actually a part of. You will actually be aligning yourself with the universe that you are a part of. Now, one other thing I want to add to this, because the prevalence of AI in our reality has changed our consciousness to the point where we tend to think that there's a formulaic answer for everything. Like, just give me the formula, I'll apply that formula, and everything's going to change. It doesn't work like that. It's nature. So nature has very small microcosms of timing and evolution, and it also has huge cosmic timings of evolution. And this is why I say we need to connect with our infinite selves, with who we really are as an infinite being, so we can align with that massive cosmic paradigm within which the entire universe is evolving. And that's where we're going to find the grace, the ease, the peace, the reconciliation within ourselves, the end of duality, the end of thinking we're like two different people, who we really are, and the ego, the end of all of that, so we can come into a state of wholeness, of oneness within ourselves. And that's where our true power lies. I'm telling you, when you are clear, when you really get this and get who you are, it changes everything. For one thing, you will never feel alone again, because you will be aware that you are connected to something that is so massive, that is moving this entire universe in the direction of exactly that vision that you hold within your heart. Because that vision isn't just yours alone. That vision is a vision of the actual true reality from which we all emerged as human creators. One of the reasons I think we feel so alone on this planet is because we are disconnected from all of that. It's because we tend to view ourselves as just a piece in this bigger puzzle where everything is separated and everything is divided. Everything involves exchanges and deals and this and that. And meanwhile, each one of us is like, we're just alone in this whole situation. So I hope you will take some time to really kind of be with these thoughts and see where you stand with this. And whatever the case, I just want to finish with this in terms of just a more practical, everyday way of looking at it in your own life. Remember this. Remember what I shared with you at the beginning of this video that Archangel Michael told me a long time ago. If you have a situation in your life that you are desperately trying to change and nothing is working and it's just not happening for you, remember that simple thing that he said. Just look at your perspective, because it probably means you've exhausted all of the possibilities within your perspective. So rather than just giving up and saying, oh, there's just no answers for me, instead of doing that, see if you can find a different way of looking at it, a different angle, a different framework to put it in. And then you have a chance to see, oh, look, I never thought of that. I never thought of that. And then you might even find synchronicities begin to open up in your life. I also want to add this final idea. Always remember that you can ask your angels to help you with this. If you're stuck in a situation in your life, you can't figure out a way out of it, you can't figure out a way to change, maybe you can't even figure out a way to change your perspective, you can ask your angels to assist you in that process, to assist you in seeing it in a different way, from a different framework, from a different perspective, where new possibilities will open up and maybe even miracles. So I think that's it for this video. Remember, there's only a couple more days left to get on the wait list for Ascension Power, Trust the Light Within, including the final elimination of the source of fear. So be sure to go to the description below this video, find that link, and sign up for the wait list if you think that's something that might interest you. And if you got benefit from everything I shared here today, please give this video a thumbs up and share it out with anyone else who you think could also benefit from this information. And be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell, because I am here currently every Tuesday and Friday. Later on, Sunday, Tuesday, and Friday. I'm taking a break from Sundays for right now, but definitely I'm here every Tuesday and Friday with all new videos. And with that, I'm sending you so much love, light, and high vibrational energy, and I so look forward to seeing you in the next video. Namaste.